Here we're looking in the trunk of a CLK, and the reason is we're going to show you how to open the pressure relief valve for manual top operation, and also to show you how to check the fluid level in the pump. If this is your first problem with a convertible top, you likely are low on hydraulic fluid due to a leak somewhere, and here's how to check it. The pump is hiding forward of this panel, but there are access tabs to check out the pump. In particular, Mercedes originally has these tabs intact, and you only need to cut a few half-inch sections through this felt. We've done that already, meaning most of this is already pre-cut, and if you cut out completely, then you're able to raise these two tabs. This tab here, the bigger one, is for inspection of the fluid level. Now we're going to zoom in here a little bit, and you can see back there the hydraulic pump. You see a little bit of yellow fluid on the bottom, and farther up to the top are two white lines. Those are actually the minimum and maximum marker for the fluid level in the pump, meaning this pump is about an inch low on fluid and it won't move a thing anymore. This does mean that we have to fill up the hydraulic fluid, but first we need to find the leak. There's no use to adding fluid to the pump before you actually have fixed the leak. So the other tab I was talking about is here to the right, and we again have cut through the remaining felt already, and back here you see a white cone. This white cone lets you stick a flathead screwdriver in. If you turn that screwdriver about one turn counterclockwise, you are relieving pressure from the pump. That is needed only if you want to manually raise or lower the top all the way. You don't have to open or close this valve just to open or close the rear bow lock or the case cover lock. It's a little easier to show you the location of the bolts for the firewall that is protecting the pump from the trunk. I'm counting a little over 20 of these 10mm hex head bolts. The only ones that need to be removed with a wrench are in the far corner, because the ratchet with extension is having a bit of a hard time getting there. Everything else can be taken out with a ratchet or a nice handy tool. Pretty easy. Get yourself a magnetic tray to throw the bolts into so you don't lose them. The bolts go all around the perimeter. Lift up over here, you see more bolts going around. The bolts that stay in place are these two 4 ones plus these two. Okay, next step. We have now taken out the firewall. Actually, the firewall did have the amp for the subwoofer attached to it, and that amp simply disconnects by pushing in a tab here and then pulling the connector out. Conversely, if that seems too complicated, you can also just take the 4 screws out that I previously said don't have to be unscrewed. Another point of interest is the fuse box over here. The important fuse for us is the 40 amp fuse number 13. If this fuse is blown, then you almost certainly have a bad pump motor. So here is the pump. It has a plastic cover over the hose manifold plate. That cover is removed with an 8mm wrench, and the pump itself is bolted down to the chassis with 3 10mm hex nuts. And after you've removed those nuts and you've disconnected the wiring harness, you can go about disconnecting the hoses, which I'll show you in a moment. So here I'm holding a CLK pump the way you would get it shipped from Top Hydraulics. It is without the mounting frame, but filled with fluid and the ends plugged up. So it's plug and play. In case you have a bad pump, you can easily swap those around. Conversely, if you're trying to refill your old pump after you've replaced cylinders, here's the fill plug. You simply fill the pump up to the maximum line and move the top back and forth a little bit. The system is self-venting, so as the cylinders get actuated, the air from the hoses and cylinders makes it back into the reservoir, and after a couple of cycles you want to refill the fluid to the proper level. Theoretically, the proper level when the top down is the upper line, when the top up is the lower line. You don't want to significantly overfill because you create a lot of back pressure in the reservoir. Actually, top hydraulic seals are so good that the pumps will hold up quite well to back pressure in the reservoir, but the original seals in the original pumps do not like it for the reservoir to be overfilled. So anyway, having said this, I'll show you how to remove the pump. We have already removed the plastic cover here with the two 8mm bolts, and now next thing we do is locate 4 5mm socket head bolts and screw those with an Allen wrench. Number 3, and 1 to go down there. Now is the important part that I wanted to show you. Not that I have to show you how to undo all these bolts and how to unplug the wiring harness. The important part was to show you how these hoses come loose. You plug a little bit on every single one, loosen them up. If you pull a little bit on every one, then you can pull them all out together. They will all stay confined to this plate, so they will not get mixed up. You can simply take the old pump out, put the rebuilt pump from Top Hydraulics in, and push the plate back on. And there you are. You should have a working pump again. In the end, you push all the hoses back in and refasten this plate, plug in the wiring harness, bolt on the frame again, and there you go. Let's talk about hydraulic fluid for a moment for convertible tops. I'm holding here a bottle of hydraulic oil ZHM. This is made by Ferdinand Bilstein, part number 02615. It is identical to the fluid that has been used for decades by Mercedes, BMW and Porsche, and the second cheapest way to get it is directly from Mercedes as Mercedes part number 000-989-9103. Late model convertibles use hydraulic fluids that have more of a smell to them. I personally don't like that, and the late model hydraulic fluids also attack clear coat in case they spill. So this is definitely a good way to go, and this fluid is cheap to get. Why this particular fluid? Well, it has a fairly consistent viscosity throughout a wide temperature range, which is important for convertible tops, and it does not suspend water in the fluid, meaning there's no emulsifier in here. Water in the fluid from condensation will simply drop down to the bottom of the reservoir, and with the hopes that at some point that fluid gets sucked out before the pump has so much water in it that it even sucks that water into the lines, and at that point you're looking at potential damage. Anyway, hope this helps out. Hydraulic fluid ZHM, Febby 02615.